I guess sorry, sisters got questions. They want me to send them up or ask. Either way, they want to do it. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه وسلم. Before we start, I just thought about something. Another thing that's humbling. When we started Quran class, we used to go to Quran class, right? Sheikh Father. We would sit with kids, y'all. I'm talking about kids, 7-year-olds. So when we walk over to the circle, the kids, they jump up like, look out, move for the Sheikh. Talking about us. Young boys scattering out the legs and coming. I'm like, yo. They running like a Sheikh, they staring at you. Somebody the teacher. You know what I'm saying? So he like, sit down. So you read, you looking at what the kids read, 7, 8-year-olds, they like buckle something you said. Hey. I'm more like Senia. I'm all the way to like 27. They, you know what I'm saying? But it humbles you. It humbles you. Yes. And then you see that you listening. This is how you know. Once you're in that environment, you listen like, sure, I ain't going to read. My reading ain't like that. My reading is not that. It's not for that. I got to do better on my reading because that don't sound like mine. You know what I'm saying? Like you go through that a lot. The more you go through that, the more you see how much more you need to learn. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's how it was. You know, we were just talking. When we were very competitive as students. You know, I guess being from America, we're competitive, right? So I remember it was one night. We all used to live in the same neighborhood. Myself, Saeed, and Jamil Finch. But Jamil Finch was like my neighbor. Like I opened my door, his door was right here to his house. And so one night we were up studying late. I was up studying late. And I was thirsty. And the corner store, so at the bottom of the building, there was like a store you could walk to. It might have been like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I said, all right, I'm thirsty. I'm gonna grab something to drink and take it down. So I left the building. I went to the store and I looked up and I saw Jamil Finch. His library was right there. His light was still on. I was like, dang, I gotta go back and study because I can't go to bed if I know he's up studying. And that's just what it was. So I went back in my library, turned the light on and started studying some more until I fell asleep. And that was kind of like how we used to move.
Good competition. Competition, like, hey, Russian is good, and that's why it's difficult. So we see a lot of that sort of stuff and all that nonsense. To us, you can't be serious. We won't come from that. And everybody knew that. We was all there at the same time. It's impossible to say this now on Twitter, and we can just really get to it with the books and stuff. But sometimes, you gotta deal with it.
I mean, if it get bad enough, then we'll deal with it. But we don't like to deal with that stuff. I think it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. I'm sorry, we get to that. It's a lot. Unless you want to do one here and one here.
Yeah. It says, what books should one study to prepare themselves for becoming a student?
Quran.
Oh, yeah. Number 1, Quran. Whatever that some books that stay relevant in our area, black folks. So he really the one it is, top of the Quran. You think they just they read a couple juz every day. I was talking to a brother in the high school. On Britain. Long hair, was in my class. Used to sound like what's the name? Used to sound like what's the name? Back to the Future. Yeah, great Scott. He used to talk like that. High school in my class. So Hassan was Harvard, right? That's my man. So I said, Hassan used to. I was asking him about, memorize the Quran and stuff like that. So he said, right now, bro, I'm weak. Right now, bro, I'm like super weak right now. I'm only doing it just a day. I'm like, dang.
But real quick, just imagine you look at yourself and then you look at these people saying he's weak because he's only doing one chapter, one juz of the Quran a day.
But juz a day is how much in a month? I mean, he's finished the Quran every month.
He's finished the Quran every month.
He said that's weak though. That's a hopper. He says a hopper, man, I'm not really on my game. Right now I'm only doing it just a day. Which is you finish the Quran once a month. Like that.
But then you look at yourself though.
You look at yourself, you hear that, I said, oh, way off. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm way off.
I remember one time I bought a book it was a book about innovators. Like how to recognize innovators. It was a nice book, right? So I was leaving one class, walking to this is when I was in college. I was leaving one class, walking to another class. So one of the students, he saw the book. He was like, "This is the only book you read on this?" At the time, I was like, "Yeah, this is what it is." So he started laughing at me. I'm like, "What you laughing at, man?" He's like, "Man, that's just the beginner one. You need to read this one, and then this one, and then that one." And then I just start feeling smaller. And then, like I said, when you get to that point, you realize you don't really know what you think you know. The thing with us, we don't know a lot. We know a little bit. But we also, what we do know is that when other people talk, we know that they don't know either. You understand? You understand? Let's clarify that. I know I don't know, but I'm 100% sure you don't know either. You might be worse than me. You understand what I'm saying? So from that standpoint, we can see that.
I got one.
Huh?
I said I got about 3 questions.
Go ahead, Shay.
The first question is, when y'all would have been studying, which scholar, not to take nothing from the share, which scholar do you feel that benefited from the most? Which one did you feel that you benefited from the most?
Me personally, hands down. Me personally, hands down. Sheikh Jesus there. Me personally. That's just me. I'm not trying to say we were able to benefit from a lot of people, a lot of scholars. But that's just me personally.
I think for me it was different stages, right? So from the beginning all the way to the end, the longest run was with Sheikh Abdul Sabah. He was with us from the Arabic program all the way up until we graduated. And we never didn't have him to be able to rely on independently. But I think towards the end of my studies, there was a Sheikh Nizar, a Shurabi. I feel like he took me to a different level. Before I graduated, he's a judge, in fact, he's a judge. And he used to allow us to go to the courtroom and sit on the panels with the judges when they gave rulings in different cases. And so when we would sit on the panels, they would give verdicts on people, and then they would have us look up the speech of Sheikh al-Islam, what ruling was used, what principle. So we actually had practical implementation of the stuff in the Sharia right in front of us. So I got a lot of benefit from the practical implementation of things, right? Then, before I left, he wanted me to focus on a Qawaid Ibn Rajab. It's a book from Ibn Rajab, Alhamdulillah. It has nothing but Qawaid, principles, right? And then he also had me go through the second mujalla of Al-Kafi, the second volume of Al-Kafi. And he told me, he said, listen, before you leave, we need to travel from Mecca to Medina and stay the weekend. So, all right, Sheikh. So I left with him for the weekend, and we actually covered how to do analytical deduction class. And he taught me that the whole trip. We literally read from driving out of Mecca, and he had the expedition, right? So it was weird because he laid down the third row of his seat, and there was another judge driving, and he made a blanket in the back of his Jeep. So I had to sit in the back, I'm bouncing all around on the road, and he's laying down, and we're going through Al-Kafi. And we literally read the entire time. And I told myself, I'm not going to give up if he don't give up. You know what I'm saying? To me, it was like a challenge, right? So we read from leaving Mecca all the way until we got to the hotel. And it was like 5-6 hours. We got in the hotel. I wasn't putting my book down until he put his book down. And so we're in the same room. He's like, all right, we're going to sleep. I was like, all right, cool. And then when that happened, so I'm saying I got a lot more benefit with him after I reached a certain level.
I'm sorry. That's like a judge inside of a real court.
Yeah, that's a real. It's like the Supreme Court judge. He's a real judge.
It's not in court.
Like he can sentence people to death, and all that. It's like a real judge.
It's personal time, traveling. Like sometimes I'm saying this because people say, if I come here sometimes about the floor, people look at, damn, okay. Like I'm out of uniform.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that on that tip. Like it gets to that point with the machete. That's how comfortable. You still talking conversation and it's a mashallah.
Yeah. And so what happened was, so for me, I learned a lot of implementation from him and from Sheikh Abdullah Kadab. Matter of fact, towards the end of my studies at Quarter, it was so nice because I got invited to the sittings of all the judges. Used to sit with this one judge. And it would be like 5 or 6 judges in there, and me, a small, measly student from America, and there was a Russian student there. And we would sit and go over classical texts, mind you, I'm about to graduate, so I'm supposed to be up on my game. They're going through aspects of paying zakat that I couldn't even understand. Then when it was over, I had to go home and reread everything we covered. It's like, man, I don't even know if I'm going to the next class. But I kept at it, and so what I'm saying is, studying with him, to me, it was a lot more beneficial towards the end. Sheikh Abdul Majid, he built us up to a certain point. And I guess he still treated like we were his kids because he wouldn't really.
He gave us a lot of time.
Yeah, he gave us a lot of time. He babied us for 10 years.
All the way out the door. All the way until he left. And that's why it's a manner for us, right? The scholars we study, even Sheikhs, I didn't get a lot of time with Sheikhs. And that's another thing, like either the Prophet said, remember they said the Sahaba, some of them would be working and they would come back, and it used to be like, I couldn't even go, I gotta work. I missed a bunch of stuff because I had to work. Then I'm somewhere, he mentioned a bunch of stuff because he had to work. And that's just how it's life. It's life don't stop. So it's a lot of, even Sheikh Muhammad, he took us to, he put us on another, so like, I think it's better how you said it. At different stages, you start benefiting from other scholars a little more than the other at that stage in your color. You know what I'm saying? Sheikh Muhammad put us on a whole nother, he was pushing.
So Sheikh Muhammad Hardy, he took us from, he was the first one that allowed us to go back and forth with him. Like we could. No, but only a certain extent. We wasn't strong enough to go back and forth. So Sheikh Abdul Majid, we wasn't strong enough to go back and forth. But by the time we got to Sheikh Muhammad, we're talking about just the personal classes. By the time we got to Sheikh Muhammad Hardy, we were able to go back and forth and pick his brain on issues and why you say that, what's the deal for that, what's the what just allow for that, and so we could do all of that with him. So by the time towards the end of our studies, we had a lot more tools at our disposal where we could, ask better questions and stuff like
And
that.
honestly, yo, we only got to that point by leaving off all the nonsense
Yes.
that's going on in the city. As long as we was involved with the stuff that's going on in the city now, don't go there this way. As long as we was involved with that, we wasn't really benefiting like we could. Once we left that stuff, I'm like, man, that's when we really started like benefiting. Let me say that.
Yeah,
Because
that's when it became funner.
remember that time we came to Mesh and shit, how we come to Mesh one day, we got class. We come in the masjid, our shit is reading his Quran to his shit. He getting checked on his Quran. And we got class with him. We sitting there like, yo, is he reading to the sheikh?
Yeah,
Right? It's like, dang.
but a Quran shake is different than a
Quran sheikh is a Quran sheikh.
Yeah, it's different. It's different.
Sister got a question here. We got to go one. Do you recommend studying at Al-Azhar University, or is there a position taking Islamic education, either fit, etc., from a graduate of the school?
I just this shit.
Yeah, why not study at Azhar? What's the problem with Azhar?
Or the back about it.
Yeah. If the school does have an issue, everybody's gonna know about them, honestly. Number one, wherever you go, whether it's Egypt, South, wherever you're going, where you don't just show up and just start learning from random people. You understand what I'm saying? Nobody, like, who does, you don't just show up at a place and you start
No, we
learning
do
from
it here.
random people. Well, we do here, but that's
We do it
that's
here.
the problem. Right? You go somewhere, you check with the people who are there to make sure that everything is what it's supposed to be. You don't just show up at a place and then you just start learning from
Check
random people.
resumes.
Yeah, you gotta check resumes. You have to. That's one of the oldest, the oldest university in the world. How you, don't understand. For a graduate from the school, you gotta do your homework, not just on everything. What would be the best location, Sardia or Mesa, for a female over 40 years old to study?
To me, if you can go to the Mahbad al-Wahi, place where the Quran was revealed, to me, that's nothing better than that. Imagine studying Islam in a place where your salat is worth 100,000 times more than any other place in the world. You can't beat that. So obviously, I want to recommend going to Mecca because I'm biased, right? There's nothing against Egypt or any other place, but if you have the opportunity to go there, then go. If you don't have the opportunity to go there, then you go to other places.
It's stuck on Saudi. That was the case, the whole world would be there. So a lot of restrictions getting in out of Saudi. Egypt just, like Egypt has it's a lot easier to go.
One more question. While y'all was away, while y'all was there, did you ever meet any of the descendants of Rasul?
Descendants, like the family members?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of them.
It is, honestly.
They call Ahlul Bayt. Yes.
He said, so the question that he asked, he said, did we ever meet anybody from the family of the Prophet ﷺ over there? Actually, it's a lot of people that are still in Saudi who are from the family.
They call it Ashraf.
Ashraf. But they do have last names that you can recognize them by.
From them, Sharif, and they have others as well.
So it sounds like the study part. What was some of the hardest stuff that I had to deal with over there?
As a student, so the question was, what were some of the hardest things we had to deal with as a student? You mean in terms of studying or living conditions? Living conditions? Running out of water.
Running out of water.
You had to carry buckets back to your house, and it was rough.
Running out of water.
Can you imagine?
What's the name? The water tank be like fire at the boat.
Oh my God.
The water
Don't take a shower at the boat.
The water be hot, you know. You go make a stingy with the water hose. Yo. That's what you get your the water, yeah. You can always tell when the water has somebody in the bathroom, somebody just scream. In the bathroom, you hear somebody in the bathroom scream, you're like, dang, it is. It's like, Lord. Because the water tank is on the roof. It's 115, 110 degrees outside. The water, even if you turn the water on cold, the water hot. And you go use the stingy hose after you make a stingy, use the bathroom. But running out of water was,
Another problem was paying bills when I first got there. So to pay the electric bill or the different bills back then, you had to go to the bank. So you would think that you gain a bank cup, you wound up being there 4 hours, pay one bill. You remember that?
yeah, because they gonna
4
flow.
hours.
You gotta stop,
You
crazy.
got to stop. It was rough. Some of the other things, there's a lot of little things, you know what I mean? But anytime you had some type of stress, you always remember that anytime you get like really stressed out, it's like, Dad, like, where am I? Like, look where you at.
I'll give you a benefit. That's, to me, it's like unmatched. We used to come from the language program. We got school, right? So you get out of 12. Praise the Lord at the huddle. You just pull up a double park at the copper. Pull up at the copper at the huddle. Double park, put your hazards on, jump out, run in with the kids and everybody. Run into the huddle at the copper. Praise the Lord at the copper. Leave back out. While you leaving out, it's a janazah. Turn around, pray janazah. Sister, got a question. Turn around, pray janazah on your way out. Jump in your car and go home.
Yeah.
That was like,
Yeah.
see, stuff like that, you forget about all
Took
the
for
other stuff.
granted. Yeah,
You
that's
take
true.
for granted and you forget about all the other stuff.
The reason why I asked that question because I heard from a lot of this how rough it is living conditions,
Mm.
but living conditions and stuff like that. So to speak. That's why I asked. Like,
So, in Mecca, in Saudi Arabia, or like in other places? I mean, I don't know. So here's the thing. When I left to go stay, I was prepared for the worst. See, when you go study, my mind was, however way it's going to be, we got to get it in. I was determined. It wasn't like, we didn't go into like 1 foot in and 1 foot out. We was all in. We sold everything. That's how you know. It's like we sold everything, got one-way tickets. It ain't no coming back. We want to do what we came to do. It wasn't no turning back.
That was going on over here when you were to deal with it.
You imagine, this is what I'm saying, Chief. Sell everything. There's no home there. You don't have a home to go back to. You're leaving. That was it. It wasn't no, Dad, let me just hold my house here while I go over here and make. No, we sold everything. Got rid of every car, everything. It was done.
You come back here, you gotta stay with somebody.
You got to stay at somebody's house.
You gotta bring your whole family to stay with somebody in their house when you come back. There is no, that's how it was all.
We was all in.
So whatever came with it,
So whatever happened, we embraced it. It was like, let's come with it. Part of the territory. You want to get knowledge, it's part of the territory. You got to go through the process.
it wasn't easy and it put a strain on your marriage.
Sure.
Put a strain
That's
on
for
your marriage.
sure.
Oh, there's a question here. There's a question that says, answer. Is it easy to find? Is it easy to find work for a female? Where? That's the question.
They mean in Saudi Arabia or something. Back then it was teaching English.
Yeah,
It was back then.
back then it was. As long as you could speak English, you had a job, pretty much.
Yeah. And then if you had a degree, now it would depend on the level of job. You might be able to teach at a college or university.
Question, while I'm over there, like it's a question. If you find, like, necessary to find issues of scholars,
What do you mean?
either he's a scholar today, tomorrow he's not. If people busy themselves with it, and they're so busy with shit, you got advice on dealing with
See, all right, so the brother said,
You know, it's great. That's the same question that the sister wrote. Why are so many students calling themselves sheikh? Is it arrogance?
hold that real quick. So the brother said that the people busy themselves over there with the issues that they busy themselves over here, like which sheikh is on, which sheikh is off it, and then did the scholars give us advice on how to deal with that type of stuff, right? So the only people that busy themselves with that over there were Westerners. Westerners, like American students, British students, French students, etc. Many of the Arab students from around the world, they busy themselves with knowledge. And it goes back to say, when we first got there, we were busy with knowledge, but we was also connected to a lot of the talk. We didn't really start learning until we cut that stuff off. We cut off the dead weight. Once we cut off the dead weight and kept everything strictly knowledge-based, that's when we started really learning. Until you get to that point, there's a possibility that you could be overseas studying and even graduate and not benefit at all. There are brothers that graduated, and in my opinion, I'm not mentioning no names, but I don't think they benefited at all. And you could tell by, if you listen to some of their talks, if you read their works, it's despicable and disgraceful for a student of knowledge, in all honesty. And you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but you can read the work and it's like, what? It's a disgrace. You read the works, listen to things that they say, it's like, this person is a disgrace. And the people that, here's another thing that we fail to realize. The people, our colleagues that we studied with, they're still living. If it's online, they can read it too. If you're writing stuff, they can see that too. Like that's, if you write something, you put something out that's out of pocket, that's not befitting of a student academically, people see that. To a person that didn't study Islam, we wouldn't be able to recognize, but to people that did, it's disgraceful, some of the things that come out.
Why are so many students calling themselves sheikh? Is it arrogance? Allahu alam if it's arrogance or not. But who self-designates themselves as a sheikh?
Who from the people of knowledge do that? I mean, we already got plenty of books saying how you know a scholar from a person. Who self-designates himself and gives himself the title sheikh? Who does that? When just last year, nobody was a sheikh. Now everybody's a sheikh. I mean, everybody got to wear that. This is the thing, though. We all got to stand before Allah. Period. Whether what you say, what you write down, what you teach people, you're responsible. Everybody's responsible. If a person put that title on themselves, they got to hold up to that. It's that simple. Are they a sheikh or not?
No.
No, more than likely, unless maybe they use it linguistically.
No.
Maybe they use it linguistically, 40 and up, shit. Maybe they use it like that. 50. It might be 50. Some of them might be 50 if they want it. If they use it like that, I'll tell you like this. It was early man calling us sheikhs. Call me Sheikh Saeed. Sheikh Ali. Come back now and put a title on my name. I'm the sheikh. The sheikh called me sheikh. That's part of being responsible as a person and staying in your lane and knowing what you know and what you know not, what you don't know, and being comfortable with that.
Here's the thing. Like I said, there was a time that if you have a certain relationship with certain scholars, that the scholar might call you sheikh. But you know that you didn't study. You know you didn't put the work in. Why would you take on that title in that position when you yourself know you're not even known to have studied anywhere, yet you're a sheikh? But then it's people that put work in and they're shot out. You understand? Like it's just messed up. The whole way it's being taught is just bad, and it leaves people lost and confused. And all right, they're saying this. Should I go down to the family center? No, they're not on it. Why are they not on it? I don't know, but the brother says stay away from it. I mean, it's cool. People got to do what was comfortable for them, but at the end of the day, people wear the title of sheikh that they didn't earn. You didn't earn it. Sheikh Tahir, he earned it. Put his work in. 21 years. 21 years he put that work in.
21 years.
21 years
of study.
But if you speak the Queen's language and you're from the UK, you wear the title freely. Nobody questions your status. Well, where you study from?
21 years.
Listen, where did you study? Where's your resume? What books did you study? What knowledge did you obtain? Where's your resume? But because he doesn't look like us, it's easy to accept. That's a problem. He doesn't look like us. If you look like us, I'm going to shoot you there. If you don't look like us, I'm going to give you a thumbs up. That's the problem.
21 years.
21 years. put work in the earn the title.
21 years?
That's a lifetime.
21 years? People ain't been Muslim for 20 years. People ain't been praying for 5 years.
Huh?
You got something to say?
Just saying, man, it's just, it's
Half
disgraceful.
somebody's life.
It's
And then we turn around and
disgraceful.
just got something negative to say. And that was one of the points of doing this whole thing, so that hopefully we can see what does it take? What are they over there doing when they disappear for years at a time? They just getting skinny, buying clothes and stuff. Like, what they over there doing?
Collecting books.
Collecting books? It's like they over there on vacation? No, it's a day and night. This is all day, all night. People lose their family seeking knowledge.
Yes.
Brothers, listen, families died, whole families have died in car accidents seeking knowledge. He over there with his whole family,
What was the brother?
kids. He's from the UK, Saeed his name was.
Saeed.
Somali
It was a
His
brother.
whole family in the
Wife
car,
and children.
I think his wife was, one person lived, maybe something like that.
It
In a car
was
accident, he was going back to the Medina. And I sat in one classroom when I went there on homeroom. I wasn't studying, and I was just on homeroom. I sat in class with Saeed. It was always funny because he got the same name, so it was always just funny. The whole family died on the road going back to Medina. People die over there, and they all kinds of stuff going on. Go through that for 20 years. Yeah, we had, you might die over there, never come back. And then somebody come back and a nobody, meaning not a nobody like nobody, not to respect them, but a person who hasn't done anything Islamically as far as knowledge or putting in work to see. Now come and say something negative about a person who did like that. That's chaotic and crazy. And we wouldn't accept that for no other field of study. So how we let that ride when it comes to this?
Resonates.
Linguistically, y'all agree, linguistically, does it say shape? Linguistically? What does it say?
I don't honestly, I never looked at it. I never looked at it.
You
I
said
don't know where it is,
Greek
man.
say shape on
Look
it?
at the Greek say shake on it. It probably do.
It could, I don't know.
I don't even know. I don't.
But here's the thing, even when you
Even if it
look it
did,
up,
even if it did,
Now, I'm saying when you said shape like linguistic.
even if it did, because people graduate. Let's say a person graduated, like a Saudi would go there. He might graduate at 23. He graduated from the same college he graduated. He's 23 years old. Even if the degree does say shit, he know better.
I'm saying,
You understand what I'm saying? He's there with the bar of minds. He knows better. He know not to come out of pocket. He know not to jump out of line. You know what I'm saying?
because it'll get checked. The thing is, and that's another thing, in the Saudi culture, there's always somebody sharper than you, so they don't get out of line like that. But here in the land of where we come from, people get out of line and they're like, man, I'm gonna get this off. Like I said, I'm gonna keep on going. And then the next brother keeps going with you. And next thing you got a whole community of people thinking one thing that's not the reality. And then you have a whole city thinking that you can't pray in certain messages, and there's only 2 sunnah messages in the whole city. Like really?
Waste of time.
Just a small, just something real small for the average Muslim to think about. What is the conditions for a masjid that could be considered Sunni or Salafi? No one knows the answer to that. This is a very simple question. What are the rules in order for there to be a quote-unquote Salafi masjid? What are the rules? Is there a certain dua you have to make before you open the masjid? Is a certain color carpet, the floor? Like, what is it? The bricks got to be painted a certain color? Like, who created, what are the rules and regulations? If you find that there's no rules and regulations, you got to throw the question, son. Like, what's going on here? And only a certain group of people get to control what masjid is following Sunnah, which one isn't. Well, how do you get that pass? If we wanted that pass, where we got to go to get it? You got to pay for that? Like, who can, you know what I mean? Like, where does that even come from? How did you get to that status? Who crowned you the ruler over whose Islam is authentic versus whose Islam is weak? Where'd you get that crown from? And if I wanted the crown, or he wanted the crown, how did we get it? Only you make it and you distribute it? Right, come on. It's absurd. This is the type of stuff, but this only happens in our communities. Pay attention, Muslims. This only happens in our communities. It doesn't happen in other communities, only ours. People that look like us.
So Sister says, how should we prepare our children for Islamic education overseas, college/university?
I don't know.
We gotta be living as Muslims here. Like, when I applied for the language program at the University of Sheikh Dr. Saleh, I applied on Hajj, then I went back for Umrah. So I went to him and I asked him what about my application got accepted. He said, "Man," he said, well, we already sent the names to, I'm all the way over there, so I gotta go back and see what's up. I said, did I get accepted? He said, well, we already sent the names to Riyadh. If they pick names and then they send them to Riyadh, then Riyadh will make the final decision. We send the names to Riyadh. I said, well, is my name in the batch? Like, did you see my name? He said, you see my name? I know you didn't see the names if you sent them off. Is my name in the batch? Inshallah. I was like mad, like, yo, I'm all the way over here, you want to tell me my name is in the beach. So I said, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, at this point, mentally, I'm going to Mecca. I'm not buying nothing else for the house. I'm not buying no more furniture. I'm not buying another appliance or rug or nothing. I'm like on the verge of selling everything. You're not going to tell me if my name is in the head or not? What I'm supposed to do? You know what he said? He said, just go back to America and be a good Muslim. And I said, hey, just like that. That's real. And I had to come back and just try to be a good Muslim. I hope I got accepted. You gotta be Muslim. You gotta be. Islam has to be the life. It can't be like we say sometimes. Like we say, well, how do you do such and such? And sometimes, you know, we say, what you mean Islamically? Like, what other way are we doing things? What's the other way we doing things as Muslims? What other way are we living? If we gotta ask the question, what you mean? Well, Islamically, you can't do that. Well, which way you living? How else are we living as Muslims? Everything's supposed to be Islam. Everything we do is supposed to be based on deen. If we gotta ask, well, Islamically, you can't really do that. Well, we shouldn't be doing it because we Muslim and we supposed to be living by the Quran and the Sunnah.
You know, I was Muhammad Amin, as I mentioned before, he came down one morning after Fajr when I was living in Maryland. And I told him I wanted to study. He said, fast, pray all your Sunnah prayers, and do everything you need to do with your worship. And inshallah, you'll get accepted. And this is when I met Al-Thamaraat. You know Al-Thamaraat, so say it again. He was actually here, it was after Fajr. He was like, man, make sure you pray your Sunnah prayers. Make sure you fast Mondays and Thursdays. He was giving me a whole list of things to do in order to get accepted. And so I said, inshallah, I'm going to try to do these things, and Allah make it easy for us to get accepted.
Rahman took me to apply for Medina when I went. I couldn't speak Arabic, I had my application, and he was already there. He took me to the office to apply. Dude took, but the brother in the office looked at my application. I used to know Arabic. He looked at my application, took it and said, threw it in the corner. It was a pile of applications stacked up like this, right? Threw my jaw in the corner like, went back once and said something to the right man and kept typing. And like we wasn't even standing there no more. To him, we was done. I said, man, what did he say? He said, you're too old, you're over the age now. I'm like, dang, just like that, ain't nothing else to do. I'm going back. I ain't gonna come here anyway. I ain't gonna come here anyway. Like, the sister says, are there any programs being taught in Philly or at this center where a child can immerse him or herself in the Arabic Quran? Right now, our program isn't running, but up the street at the Philadelphia Mansion, they have a summer program for Quran. Brother Rashid, she was here doing taught reading for a night or two. They have a Quran program for the kids up the street at the Philadelphia Mansion. Another question. What advice do you give when one is ostracized from taking Islamic education from students who graduated from Islamic University? That's you in Philly, man. You gotta, eventually, you gotta stand up and stop being scared of people. It's deen. This ain't the street. It's the deen. Either they can prove what they say in Islamically or they can't. It's real easy. Either they can prove what they're saying or they can't. The problem is we won't ask questions. We let people say whatever they want, won't question them about it. If you start questioning people, you want to see they don't know what the heck they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about majority of the time. And if they don't know what they're talking about, how are they giving you direction on what to do or what not to do? If they don't know themselves. But the only way you figure that out is you have to ask questions. Where does that come from? What's the ayah? Why is that? Why not? Who said that? Like, what is that based on? If you just let people come here and say anything, you want to constantly be at the mercy of whatever they tell you. I think this question, I just want to get the sisters' questions because y'all might, I want to ground this up with y'all's story. This one's already by ask. I was overseas and noticed the masjids were not labeled Salafi. Where do we label masjids? Why do we label masjids? And should they be labeled? You gotta ask the people who label masjids. You have to ask the people who put labels on.
What's the ruling on it?
What's the hook on labeling the masjid? Islamically. What's the ruling on that? What makes it a Salafi? That's the thing you're talking about.
What's the how? What's the rules for the masjid being Salafi or not?
Good question. Somebody said a question.
What advice would you give someone who doesn't have the drive to seek knowledge? Just be a good Muslim. Listen, everybody is going to have a different pathway to get to paradise, right? Jannah has many different ways for people to get there. As we find in the narration of the Prophet ﷺ and Rata Badia, there was a woman that was a prostitute, but she fed a cat water. And that was the reason for her to enter the Jannah. So the reality of it is we don't know what Allah has for you in terms of your way to get to paradise. Everyone's not going to be a student of knowledge. So let's understand that first. I think at one point in time, historically, the students tried to make everyone in the city a student of knowledge. So every Muslim was expected to walk around with Sahih Bukhari and memorize Salatul Usul and Qawa'id Arba, etc. This is not the reality. Living in the land of the Muslims, most of the people in society there are not students, they're regular people. They work 9 to 5s, they go to the masjid and pray, and they go home. They might sit.
But what they do, they respect the people of knowledge.
Yes.
They respect the people who are teaching. They have respect for the imams, and they have respect for the shuyukh. Even though they're regular people, regular jobs, and they're not students of knowledge, they respect the people who are doing that job.
And they might sit after the salat for a small talk from the imam and go home. And so my advice is, you don't have to be a student of knowledge. Just respect knowledge. Respect Islam, respect the knowledge, but you don't have to. It's not a requirement. The only thing that's required is the fundamental things you need to know to be a Muslim. How to pray, how to fast, how to make wudu. If you're making hajj, how to make hajj. These are the things that you need to know if that's what you're doing. The next one. What advice would you give to a sister who really wants to seek knowledge overseas, but doesn't have a mahram or just wants to visit? This be patient. Be patient. How much money will be sufficient to bring? Family of 3, 6, it depends on where you're going and how long you stay. These are not cookie cutter answers. One size fit all. It depends on your situation.
When I left, I called him, I said, yo, how much money I need to bring?
As much as you can.
As much as you can. I wasn't expecting that. I think he was gonna say like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I hope he said like 4 grand. So I'm trying to lowball. He said, as much as you can. I'm like, I don't really have that much. I don't have that much.
Just be like,
He said, as much as you can bring. I thought he was gonna give me a number. He said, man, you need to bring as much as you can bring. I said,
there's no number until you figure out what works for you. Any questions for you guys? Yeah, the answer to the question from the sisters. Yes.
Like, how did y'all prepare to come back to America when y'all look all things?
what is that?
How did y'all prepare to come back to America? Y'all was done
I
school.
was hurt. How do we prepare to come back to America? Number one, y'all, we didn't think he was coming back. Like, bro, we thought it was a one-way, just learn Arabic, get to sit for scholars and benefit Islam with your family the rest of your life. It's a good old story. So we didn't think we were coming back, initially. Then, when I started hearing we were coming back, I didn't think it applied to me. I'm like, you can't be talking about me, I'm from Philly. We got plenty of down around everybody in Philly, so who they talking about going back? I ain't going back. And then the further you get along, you start hearing scholars who talking like, yo, when y'all go back to your country, you're like, why would they want us to go back home? Like, we here to study. I'm like, The expectation is you come here to learn and you go teach your people. You're supposed to be teaching your people. You're not supposed to be, if you don't have to. The point of the scholar teaching you is because scholars raise scholars. You know, push that over, is it?
Yeah, right.
Scholars raise, right? Who's sitting at the feet of the scholars? Future scholars, the students of knowledge. That's the expectation. The expectation, y'all, this is not the expectation from the early man. That is no scholars in your country. Your country is full of nobodies who don't have any knowledge. No scholars.
And they'll forever be nobodies.
And it'll never be scholars. That's not what they think. They don't think like that. We might be thinking like that, but that's not what that's not what they expect. They expect you, student knowledge, whatever country you're from, you're supposed to take the knowledge that you learn here, go to your country, and disseminate it and apply it in your country. You're supposed to be able to do that as a student. That's your job. Like Sheikh G told us, it's not my job. Like we were asking him about I think that was the niqab or something like that. He said, listen, these are conditions of the niqab. Y'all gotta go back and apply that. Did you know we want to shake? Just say it like this. So if somebody asks me, I can say, well, the sheikh said, no. This is the box you have to play with. Y'all go back there and apply it. You know your people better than I do. That's what he told us. He said, I live here in Saudi. Women who really come from like small ages, I'm talking to a woman, that's not an issue. Y'all going to a different place. Y'all have to take the information that y'all learn and go apply it to your country. That's what's expected. But if Tom doesn't come to do that here, people say he wants fame. Right? They start throwing negative things. He must want this. How does he get to say that? Well, the scholars that taught him, instructed him, that's what he's supposed to be doing, teaching. And he's qualified. He didn't study, he qualified to speak. If he wasn't qualified to speak, that'd be a different case. If he's qualified to speak, then what is he supposed to do? Because you gotta understand, he can tell you this, we didn't go there to be imams. We didn't go overseas to be imam, like go study to be imam. Go study to be imam.
It's funny because, that's funny you said that because, back to the question was, how did you prepare yourself to come back? So me, I didn't plan on coming back. In fact, I never wanted to come back. When I sold everything and got a one-way ticket, that was the plan, a one-way ticket. And as the years went by, I started to realize I can't stay here. And the reality started to set in. So then when I realized I had to come back, I said, well, I'm not giving dawah. It's not something I really want to do. I used to work in IT. I said, I'm gonna just go back to the IT field and just rock out with that. And Sheikh Carr here was the one who told me, well, if you don't give dawah, you're gonna be a layperson in 2 years. A layperson, meaning if you don't go back to teach Islam, everything you studied all this time, you're gonna forget it and be as almost if you didn't study at all. And it scared me. I said, whoa, it'd be like a waste. And so because of that, I halfway wanted, but even with that, I still didn't really want to give dawah because there was enough people that was giving dawah. And I didn't want to, I remember because I'm always like outspoken. Like I say my mind, that's one of my problems, right? I always say how I felt, I don't sugarcoat stuff. So I got a phone call from one of the duat at that time, right before I graduated. There was something going on, and I must have said something that ticked him off. And he called me on the phone, and he said to me, he called me on the phone, I'm missing his name. But if he's listening, he knows what he said. He calls me on the phone, and he says to me, he says, Ali, he says, your career is going to be over before you even get started. I'm like, career? What are you talking about? This is a job. I didn't know people gave dawah from, I didn't know all that. What do you mean career? So I'm not giving no dawah, but at the end of the day, that's what it was. He said, your career is going to be over before you even get started. Basically, you keep opening your mouth. So I said, I don't care about none of that. I didn't sign up for somebody's career. There's a lot of little stuff like that, little small stuff like that. Someone threatened your career to be over. Like, what does that even mean? What, you got applications for jobs to give dawah? I got to do an interview with somebody? Like, what the heck are you talking about? This is the type of stuff that we had the experience coming back to America. I'm not with that.
we didn't have a blueprint to what to do when you get back. We was like, it wasn't even real that you going back to America until like your last year. Like you only have like, on your transcript in school, you got like, these are the classes you got left. You're like, oh man, I only got like 3 classes left. So what's gonna happen after that? Well, your ID about to expire too. So now it's like the walls start closing in. So now you just gotta figure something out because it's not even, mentally, it's not even realistic that I'm going back. We was like, I'm here, like, I go back for a couple weeks in the summer and come back. So it start getting like,
But here's the crazy part. The crazy part is when we got there, we saw Arab kids grow up and get married and stuff. And it's like we've seen families get raised in front of our eyes for 10 years. So we done watched the whole generation of kids get older, and then we gotta leave and develop relationships, bonds. You got like these people treat you like they're their family, like you're their family, and you have to leave. And that's when it really started to sink in. Like, dang, this ain't even your home.
yeah.
And then when you come back to America, you got family here that I haven't seen you since you was a baby. You done missed their whole life growing up. So that's the trade-off, right? Coming back to America, some of the things that you look at is that you have family members that pass away and you couldn't get back. People got older, kids grew up, like little cousins and whatever, and it's like, damn, you miss a large portion of their lives and you overseas. So it's a trade-off, right? There's a trade-off. And this is some of the things that happens.
First brother I knew that was leaving, I just got there. That was Ali Roach, brother named Ali Roach. When I first got there, he was finished, he was leaving. And I was like, I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't believe he was leaving. I had just got there. I'm looking at him like, leaving? Like, why would he leave? Then somebody said he graduated. And I'm like, graduated from what? I didn't know it was a real college. I didn't know it was a real college, like you get credits and you move up. I thought it was just like, you go there studying benefit. Somebody said he's graduating, he's finished. I'm like, how do you finish seeking knowledge? You know what I'm saying? So when he left, I'm like, well, that's just him. That's not us. It's like almost denial until you look at your transcript, there's only a couple classes left. Now you gotta really put stuff in perspective. Like, all right, I really do gotta do something. But there's no blueprint and there's nothing set up. So a lot of people come back and then it take years to get back after leaving. You've gone for so long, it take a long time.
Yes.
I know like y'all around like a lot of styles and stuff, but is it still like interesting sometimes when you see certain chicks like does shake so and so?
Yes. So he said that when he was around certain scholars, they did like were you like, Dad, that Sheikh such and such? Yes, I'm gonna tell you one in particular. Sheikh Abdullah Budayan Rahimahullah. He was from the Kibar ulama, from the older scholars, right? So some of the students say yes, Sheikh Abdullah, he's dead now. He died some years ago. Rahimahullah. They say, yeah, Sheikh Abdullah Budayan is at the Haram, at Meshur al-Haram, and he's teaching classes there. He has like one of the big Sheikh chairs. So I always heard him. I said, dang, I want to go meet him. So we ran over, trying to catch his class. And I'm looking around, and I see this chair. Now, I saw this old guy sitting in the chair, but the way he was sitting in the chair, it's like he was sitting on his feet, cocked to the side, with his kufi off, and his shimag all falling off his head. And he just looked like his throat didn't look all crusty. I said, dang, I'm like, where's the Sheikh at? Like, where's the Sheikh at? And they said, that's him. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that Sheikh Abdullah Budayan? He was like, yeah. I said, dang. Because I was just looking for a certain look. In your mind, you got a look. He didn't fit the description of that look. So at the Haram, what happens is scholars have students reading all their questions off. So it says, Fadil to Sheikh, da 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 da. And then the Sheikh answers questions. He was sitting there reading his own question. This guy is saying this, and he basically, I remember this one thing he said. He said, basically, this guy is wanting me to give him permission to disobey Allah. And then he looked at the paper and threw it away.
Then he read it back here. I had the same exact thing. He was already sitting. Because this is the thing, it's a big chair, right? So sometimes It's the chair for the sheikh, the teacher, but sometimes regular people there friends, they'll just sit in the chair.
Yeah.
So sometimes just be regular people just sit, it's a nice soft chair. Sometimes people just sit in the chair and read Quran. So I get down there and I see Brother Ismail from Holland. Ismail, right now?
Yes.
From Holland. Ismail already down there from Holland, so I'm like, this is my first time seeing the sheikh. So I see Ismail, I'm like, we was in the language program together, so I'm like, yo. So somebody sit in the chair, Indian style, Shimal like up. Usually in the shack, they don't really wear their drums like that. They really wear like
Not the class.
not the class. So this one's like up on the top. So somebody sitting in the chair, so I'm talking to this one. I'm like, yo, what time you think the sheikh gonna get here? He like, that's him right there. I'm like, in the chair, that's him. He didn't carry it like, not that it wasn't what I was used to seeing. Right?
It's the humility though. So one time, Brother Zahid, he would invite a lot of the elder scholars to give talks to the American students. So at this point now, I knew who he was. So one day he was getting on the elevator, and I said, "Dad, let me just slide on the elevator with the sheikh so I can talk to him." We got on the elevator. He looked at me and said, because he knew I was a student at the university. First, I said, "Sheikh, give me some advice." He said, "If you didn't finish the Quran, finish the Quran." That was the only thing he said to me when we got off the elevator. I was like, "Dang." You know what I mean? So it's like having those encounters with scholars that are not alive anymore. Even another scholar, Sheikh Abdullah Aqil, rahimahullah, they used to call him Sheikh al-Hanabila. He was from the oldest scholars of the Hanbali Madhab. He died as well. And when he would come to Mecca, he was from Riyadh. When he would come to Mecca, it would be so many students. There would be hundreds and hundreds. And so I don't know how I got his phone number. I have no idea how I got his phone number, right? But I would call him from time to time, right? So at this time, I was in the College of Sharia, and I wanted to switch to judicial law, the College of Judicial Law. So I called him. I said, "Sheikh," I said, I told him my name, where I'm from, and I wanted to switch to the College of Judicial Law. He said, "Well, do they have, can you be a judge in America?" I was like, "No." He said, "What do you want to switch for?" So I said, "Well, I heard they have like a better usul fiqh program and all this other." He said, "Well, then go ahead. Go ahead and switch." I was like, "All right." But just the thing is, just that, he was like, how old was he? He was old. He was like in his 80s and 90s. The thing is, just having those encounters with them, as old as they are, it meant something to us. Just to be able to take bits and pieces of knowledge from them, it's like we can implement that in our lives, whatever small thing it is, maybe disseminate some of it to the people who
See
gave
it
us.
up close and personal. Like Sheikh Muhammad Ali, I never saw any scholar like him. Alhamdulillah, we saw a lot of people, you know. I didn't see anybody like Sheikh Muhammad Ali. Ethiopia, right? Well, he died in Barcelona. If you wanted to have him a place, you had to walk with him. Like he was just different.
He was
just
bold.
different, man. He was different. I've never seen no scholar like him at all. Out of all of them I saw, and sat with and heard from them, benefited from, he was just different than everybody. Right? And when he died, it was just, that's like scary. For him to die like that was scary to me. Knowing how much information he had, and knowing how many people didn't even know who he was. Knowing how much information he had, and how many people don't even know who he was scary.
This is how you know the status of a scholar, right? If other scholars that are alive during their time refer to their books. Remember, we're talking about written math. So if a scholar is referring to a scholar that's living right now, that his book is one of the best books written on that particular thing, that's how you know the level. Sheikh Muhammad bin Adam rahimahullah ta'ala, he wrote an explanation of Sunan al-Nasa'i. You guys familiar with Sunan al-Nasa'i? From the four Kutub al-Arba? You got Abu Dawud, what else? At-Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, and al-Nasa'i. He wrote an explanation of Nasa'i. How many volumes is that? Maybe over 50 volume explanation of that book. That's his work. Not someone else's work, that's his work. To see somebody do that in your lifetime, like you actually lived it, you've seen when he completed the book. It's amazing. And when you, anybody that can write a book that's 50 volumes, what do you think that says about that person?
It's a lot of information.
Huh?
That's right.
How many people read anything 50 volumes? Yet alone wrote something that's 50
And
volumes.
on top of that, you could just go pray with him at any time.
Yes.
He just prayed he prayed the mass shit right down the street. I'm going around there and pray with Sheikh Muhammad real quick. Go around there and pray with him. But if you want to ask a question, you gotta walk. You don't waste no time. No time wasted
I remember
at all.
Sheikh Wasil Abbas and Sheikh Muhammad Liad, they were friends. And one of the first big scholars that we had the chance to sit with was Sheikh Wasil Abbas. Initially, he fled us. And this, yes. He was like, no, I'm busy. He said, come back next week. So I looked at the day and the time, and I came back next week. All right, Sheikh said, I'll come back next month. So, all right, I waited. Next month came, I went back. He said, come back. I said, Sheikh, listen, we're from America. We don't got that much time here. You need to give us something. And we didn't leave his message until he agreed to teach us Kitab Tawheed. And we studied Kitab Tawheed with him. We studied Luch with Fiqh with him. What else did we study? Friday the Fajr. What else did we study? Those are the two books that come to mind right off the bat. But we fought, like, we really was like, Sheikh, you got to. Like, we don't have no choice. We got to go back to America. We don't have nothing.
Long time.
Well, I guess it is different, but you know, sitting on books.
So when we say sitting, we mean going through books. We don't mean just sitting in general classes. We mean like cover to cover books finished. We did a lot of that with a lot of different scholars. We studied and finished books. Like I said, whoever's teaching you, you have every right to ask for their resume. What books did you cover? What sciences did you study? That's your right. You're not gonna, if you are in a university, for example, you got two teachers teaching a subject, you wanna know who those teachers are. Rather, if you're sick, you have to see a specialist, you wanna know who that specialist is. You wanna know their resume, you wanna know, you have to get surgery. You wanna find out about the surgeon. Is he skilled? Is he not skilled? Like, what do people say about him? When it comes to surgery on your heart, which is Islam, how come we don't do the same thing? We don't investigate that.
And then we turn around and say that this deen is knowledge. That's where you take your knowledge from.
But nobody does that.
You use that all the time.
Nobody does that.
This deen is knowledge. That's where you take your deen from, all that, right? Let's take knowledge from all of that. As long as you say you were such and this like that, we let it go. Then we wonder why it's chaos. And we used to tell the scholars that we said, well, person, we would talk to them about what's going on here. Sheikh, this was going on. And they used to, they used to say, leave that stuff alone, man.
Yes.
No, but Sheikh, leave that stuff alone. Learn. All right. And then come up again, because, we get emails. People don't, you get emails, all that kind of stuff, this is going on, so we go to Sheikh, say this, leave that stuff alone.
Listen, I remember Sheikh Nazar, and all this stuff, they didn't talk about him that much. I don't know why, he's nice. He's a nice guy. I was the one, I thought I was nice, but I was the one that took off the bullets.
He's nice.
No. You guys don't know him behind the camera. All the cameras that forgot.
No.
But anyway, I used to catch a lot of it, right? When I was still in school, I would catch a lot of it. And I would go to the Sheikh. I said, Sheikh, man, I want to refute these people. I just want to go in on all of them. And he would say, you're going to waste your time. Don't do that. Focus on teaching the people. I'm like, but Sheikh, you don't understand. This is a big deal. He says, it's not that deep. Teach the people the Quran and the Sunnah and make sure they understand the deen. That's it. And eventually, whoever Allah wants good for it, they're going to begin to see. And then one thing you mentioned, you gotta have good thoughts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Perhaps a person, they don't know what's going on. They don't understand that they're stuck in some type of cult, some type of cultish behavior. They don't understand that. Perhaps when that person dies, Allah will pardon them because they don't understand. He said, but if your job, teach what you know from the Quran and the Sunnah, and don't go outside of that. Don't go outside of that. Teach what you know from the Quran and the Sunnah and do not go outside.
And that was usually the response.
That was, and all the time, there's a, what's down.
Shit, down. Leave them alone. Don't worry about it. Ignorant, they ignorant. Just learn. Y'all go back, teach people the school. Teach the people the basics so they can see the nonsense. And that's what we were told. That's why I won't bother with people. Because in reality, it's, like my question used to always, they used to call him. Now they call him because he's trying to help everybody out. He's trying to help. So they calling him as a middleman. So then when it hit the fan, it's his fault. It's the middleman fault for trying to help.
So wait, he's talking about when he was overseas.
Yeah.
So when we were still in school, I didn't have no problems with brothers, but they had problems with Sheikh Car here, they had problems with Sheikh E, they had problems with that one. And me, I'm like, all right, well, let's bring the brothers together. I would, when Sheikh Car would come to Mecca, I would set up meetings with him, Musa Richardson, and the rest of the students, so everybody could come together and talk their issues out. Yeah, we did that for years, did we not?
Try to help.
Every time.
Become the bad guy.
Shadid, Muhammad, all right, Shadid, come over here. All right, guys, let's come together, let's sit down, let's fix these problems. And then they came at me, well, you gotta pick a position. You're not making me pick no position. Well, then I got refuted because I didn't pick a position. So now it's like, oh. Initially, and in the beginning, it hurt. It hurt. Why did it hurt? Because these are the people that you're with studying Islam. We know right from wrong. We know better. We weren't taught to oppress each other. And it hurt initially because I couldn't believe that the same people that you prayed with, memorized books with, sat with scholars with for years would turn on you. But literally turn on you like you were just nothing, and we were just reading books together last week. And so in reality, what it did was it toughened us up. It made our skin real thick. So now, when we see brothers and sisters now, and they come and they say, I'm being ostracized, I'm sorry, it happens to everybody. Just take your bruise, lick your wounds, toughen up, put your trust in Allah, that's it. And that's basically what happens.
Just a little side question. Did y'all ever read the book stuff and stuff like y'all was over there?
You gonna be in there? I'm all in. I'm all the way in.
I'm good. No, I went to the book. I wasn't good at it. That was his twist. He had his white shimon, his white butcher on every. That was his thing. I really wasn't in that.
It was. You live with the Muslim man, and you see what it can be. It ain't perfect, but you see what the potential is of an Islamic society. And it puts stuff, it makes it realistic. We be living sometimes in a fantasy world. How does a whole society run? How does a whole Islamic country run if everybody is a student of knowledge?
Don't make sense.
Like nobody wants to be a doctor. Nobody's gonna be a doctor. Doctors don't get rewarded. Muslim doctors don't get ajr for Allah. Nobody wants to be like an engineer or just mechanic, whatever. Everybody got to be a student. The society don't function like that. That's not even realistic. And a lot of times we be living in a fantasy world. We live in a fantasy. And a lot of times it's difficult to make it realistic if you never saw it. So you get to see all of that stuff. You got to say, okay, this person has a regular job. They worship Allah. One thing about him, he's always at Fajr. Early. I know you're there early because I'm late. You know what I'm saying? You can say what you want about him, but he's at Fletcher all year round. Is he a student of knowledge? No. So you're supposed to be there. Like you, Mr. Knowledge Man, you're the first one supposed to be there. You got people not students of knowledge. They regular people worshiping Allah, but they're worshiping and they know what they're doing in their capacity. And you get to see, okay, this is real life. This is not the fantasy world that everybody walking around is going on that level. It's not that everybody can't do it. You do what you want to do. You can do it. But is that for everybody? But everybody want to make that sacrifice? Not realistically, no. And that's not something that we got to blame each other for. But when none of us want to do it, then it's blameworthy. None of us want to look forward to our children being scholars of Islam. None of us concerned about our children being profound the Quran, memorizing the Quran. None of us. Now we got a problem. But we all worried about what? Contract. Sports, we all in. I ain't saying sports harm, I'm saying the reality is. We all in on sports. How many of us is all in on our children memorizing the Quran? If we not, and when the numbers is low like that, it's dangerous for us overall.
What's gonna happen when we all old? Who gonna lead the slide? Who we think gonna lead the slide? We got a bunch of kids, mashallah, but what are our kids learning? Can our kids recite the Quran? I don't have time. The parents don't have time to teach them, but the parents don't know. We're supposed to do what? Put them in a program where they can learn. Right? Just like we do for anything else. If I'm not playing football, if I don't play basketball, then I do what? I send them to a camp. I pay for a camp to coach them up.
The problem with the parents is that they're too afraid to send their kids to certain
You can't
places.
send them nowhere.
They can't send them nowhere. And you know, in 15, 20 years ago, they couldn't even go to school.
Yeah.
You remember that? So I'm going to school. The women couldn't go to school.
The men could.
The men could, but the women couldn't go to school. So,
Hopefully, the point of mentioning all this was not for say who we are, to understand. Hopefully, it shows that we as a community of people, we have to have respect for Islamic knowledge and scholarship. We have to have respect for Islamic knowledge and scholarship. Hopefully, understanding that this is what people, not just us in Mecca, there's people in Medina, there's people in Egypt. The Talmud and the student knowledge, this is their life, the program, that's what it looks like. And we wasn't like, people like, we saw real, like, real, we gotta tighten up. Because we think we doing something, then you come across and you like, huh? We know we way off. And that's what it is. The problem is, from what I observed, we don't respect knowledge. African American Muslims in this city in Philadelphia, Black Muslims, young, a lot, we don't respect knowledge. We respect relationships and what we respect knowledge. So as long as you're cool with this one and that one, you got the utmost respect. Right? And if you're not really cool with them, or you ain't from here, as long as you're cool with it, you got the utmost respect. But if you're not down with them, I can't really bang with you like that. Well, that's not Islam. Nowhere, that's not Islam. So hopefully this information was a benefit to open some eyes and see what's really in front of us. Because for real, y'all, Philly been like this for a long time. We don't know what we have here. We really don't know what's in front of us. We really don't know what we have in front of us, the opportunities that's in front of us. If you go in other communities, y'all, people benefiting from people. Like, we got people who study, not even us, 15, 20 years of study. How you don't drive to the mansion to hear him talk and learn from him? How? You got a car, you going down the street. That man traveled, or that one sister traveled across the world to learn what they can really teach you down the street. And we don't even show up. Why? It's online.
not even that, man. People just been, we've been taught to hate each other.
Or I can't take from them.
Can't take from them.
Allah Musta'an, Allah forgive us for any shortcomings.
You got a question?
All right. Say, we don't respect knowledge. So the question is, what do you respect the knowledge look like?
What do respected knowledge look like?
Good question. Question is, what does it look like to respect knowledge? What does it look like? We say we don't respect knowledge. Well, how does a person respect knowledge? We gotta know when to be quiet, number one.
I'm gonna give you an example. That's one thing. Respecting knowledge means if you hear somebody talking about another Muslim, be quiet. Because you know that you don't have the qualifications to speak about another Muslim. That's respecting knowledge. Respecting knowledge is staying in your lane. A person may say, well, what is my lane? If you haven't studied Islam, your lane is to come pray, give the salams, and be a Muslim. Nothing more, nothing less. Don't start delving into issues that you're not qualified to speak about. Just be a Muslim. Worship Allah. Seek forgiveness from Allah. Try to make your position with Allah better. That's it. But disrespected knowledge is when you open up your mouth and you speak about other Muslims and you know that you don't have a qualification. We just mentioned some of the qualifications. These people put work in 20 years, 15 years, 30 years. If that's not you, just fall back. I mean, that's almost like It's almost like a person in popcorn football trying to get the NFL. Is that gonna work? No. You getting in a lane that you're not qualified for. You're not qualified to speak about other Muslims. Certain students of knowledge. Matter of fact, all of the students, you're not qualified. You're not qualified to speak ill of other Muslims. You're not, unless it's something blatantly clear. Something that's ma'loom and deemed the dorora, something that every Muslim can say. When you open up your mouth and speak about other Muslims, what you're saying is that I'm allowed to do that. The religion of Islam gave me the authority to speak about that Muslim or that Muslim. If you believe you have that authority, now it should be open game, fair game for someone to say, what's your resume? What's your qualifications? Where did you learn to be able to speak? Well, I learned it from the masjid. Nah, the people at the masjid don't even know. So how do you know? Oh yeah, the people, go ask the people at the masjid. What did they study? What principles did they learn that qualifies them to speak ill of other Muslims? We're still waiting. We're still waiting. How many years now? We're waiting 2 years. We still ain't here now. What qualification? We've been said brothers aren't qualified to give verdicts. If any brother disagree with that, if you think you're ahlan to give verdicts, we're still waiting to hear from you. But it's better that they ignore us because that's what's best. That's what's best. The reality of it is, if you're not qualified, don't open your mouth about other Muslims.
It's safer.
It's safer for you with your relationship with your Lord. It's safer.
Just think, y'all, the people who are tasked with that, they have a task. They have a responsibility on beyond. Before Allah, they have a responsibility to clarify Islam. Why do you put that on yourself if you didn't even go through the training? Why you gonna go to somebody's house and take their toilet apart? You never learned anything about plumbing. Why would you do that? Why would you go to somebody's house, knock their wall down, and you don't even know how to do carpentry? You don't even know how to use a drill.
You haven't been trained.
You haven't been trained, so why would you do that? Why would you put yourself in that position? They say there's only 2 masjids on the Sunnah in the whole city. It's 2 Salafi masjids. So what does that mean? What's
Every other masjid innovation?
Cool.
Now, listen, real quick. In usul fiqh, this is something called mafhum mukhalafa, right? This is something called mafhum mukhalafa. Mafhum mukhalafa, it means that if I say, it's all the brothers here, there's only one real brother in this masjid. What does that mean about everybody else? They aren't real, right? That's called mafhum mukhalafa. We left it open so that you can interpret it how you want to interpret it. There's only one brother in here that's thorough. That means everybody else is what?
The noodles.
Noodles. Right? But listen. So when we say it's only 2 masjids in the city that's following the sunnah, that means every other masjid is not what? So that means what? Innovator. What? And if that is what you believe, then what? You gotta bring some evidence to substantiate your claim. You have to prove it now. See, we don't want to get into the proven state. That's too hard to do. It's easy for me to throw shots, but I can't prove that's hard. Now that requires me to do some real research. And then they realize
if it's two masjids, y'all, that's so. It used to be 4. It's down to 2 now. It's down to 2. If that's the case, right? What does that ultimately mean? What are you saying to people? Don't go nowhere else. Come here with me.
yes, cool. All the knowledge is with me. That's what that means.
That means if you want to be responsible for teaching everybody, then you're more than welcome. It's less responsibility for me. You can teach everybody. If you're comfortable, you know that much, you're that confident that nobody else is practicing Islam correctly except you. Alhamdulillah. You take on a responsibility and you stand with Allah with that on Qiyamah. It ain't even it's not that deep. There's no argument like that. The reality is we know that people say that and don't know what they're talking about. It's ignorant. And then it leaves the people that come to the masjid confused.
Listen, if somebody says, anybody listens to this and says, oh, you brothers don't know what they're talking about, where's your resume? Produce it. Produce your credentials, produce your trainings, produce.
Even that be produced, it's not.
No.
We used to, all we do is sit down, open books, and get to the bottom. It ain't rocket science. It's not that difficult unless you don't want to fix the problem. You don't want to fix it, and that's it. If you really want to fix it, the doors is open all over the city. Everybody got everybody's phone number. Everybody know. Everybody prays that. Nobody's ducking and hiding. Nobody is not out of control. We can sit down, pull books out, and just get to the bottom of it. If you really want to fix it. But if not, if you like chaos, then keep doing what you're doing. And keep people confused.
Resonates. You gotta go. Silent prayer. Hold on. Any other questions before we end up?
Hopefully this was smooth.
Oh, it's it.
It's just-
It's just, I don't think I will start with that, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
That's great. Then do some of that talk is the sum of our conversation I had yesterday. Bunch of that in the little show.